All right, I'm gonna stick with my plan. We're gonna take down the pieces that I'm looking forward to the least. And today it starts with these two. Now, in theory, these should be very simple. They just simply need some nut plates to attach, I believe, fuel vent lines or something similar to that. And I never drilled them when I first fit them to the plane. I also never marked these left or right because I've always been able to hold them up to the firewall and related supports and see on which side they fit. Balls. It is incredible how quickly I can clutter a work surface, like mind-blowing. That wasn't too bad. I'm gonna start a pile of parts over there that are ready for final scouring, cleaning, and go into the primer booth. I'm gonna keep moving on some of these other ones that I got. All right, next up we have all of these bulkheads, ribs. Some are called bulkheads, some are called ribs. They are all essentially the same thing. They're vertical, maybe a pair of horizontal ribs, essentially, that will go between the structure that we've created and the skin, give it some form, and allow some passageways for things like rudder cables and wiring. Why did I pick them? Why do I think they're going to be a little harder? They got nut plates, they've got fixtures, they've got nooks and crannies to deburr. So with that, I'm going to start with the forward ones. These are 902s, and take a look at what nut plates are going to have to go in there. See if they need to be dimpled. Go ahead and do all of that. Deburr, get them ready to go in that pile I just started. Alright, so I just went and finished these up by putting 4 dimples to hold the 2 nut plates in each, making sure that I had it oriented so that the nut plates were on back there for the dimples on the front. I'll also need to dimple those corresponding nut plates, which I think everybody knows is my favorite thing. I'll do it later. I'm not going to attach the nut plates before priming. I think the nut plates, like the rest of my fasteners, are going to go unprimed, therefore not white on all of this. It'll add to the look, I guess. So for now, these are ready for the pile. And we are ready for the next one. Unfortunately, that means I gotta bust out yet another plan sheet because all of these are going aft of the seats in the baggage compartment. All right, these pieces are nearly freaking identical. Some deburring and some nut plates. Again, I need to make sure I get my orientation right, therefore my dimples right, to make sure the nut plates wind up on the correct side of the part. Now, of course, we couldn't make it easy. For these 2 pieces, I need yet another plan sheet. Now, I don't even know if my camera's going to be able to pick up the detail of what we're doing here, but I'll give it a try. Of course, we're deburring, we're removing burrs, but when these parts are punched, they're left with a sharp edge and sort of a rolled edge. That rolled edge is great, that's fine, but that sharp edge needs to be eliminated, or you'll get stress risers, and those will lead to cracking. And of course, we don't want cracking in an airplane. And so all we're doing is trying to eliminate that, and I'm doing so with these detail files and going around every single little compound corner, just trying to roll that edge over. We've been doing it since day one on this airplane, but these parts are extraordinarily labor intensive in order to get it done. But I love now these flat sections because, as I've illustrated before, I got this tool which makes those super quick. However, in these detailed areas, this is all I got. All right, the next part's on my imaginary list. So I want to tackle these parts now while I'm fairly fresh, not because they're overly difficult, but they take a lot of brains. They're skin doublers, and they fit flush right up against the side skins. Now, as you remember, our side skins have a lot of holes that are dimpled and a lot of holes that aren't. And I need to match that on these, in that these will have a lot of holes that are countersunk and a lot of holes that are not. If I countersink a hole that isn't dimpled over there, we have a problem. If I don't countersink a hole that should be, well, when I go to fit this together, it's not gonna fit. It is pretty straightforward. It's pretty much just these lower holes that don't require countersinking, because everything on the plane from here up is dimpled. It's the dimpled skin. And the reasoning is pretty simple. This notch is where my spar is, i.e. where my wing is. And if my wing is here, it's okay to have bulges or universal head rivets because we don't worry about any aerodynamics over that. They're going to be covered. From here up, they will not be covered. Therefore, we want flush rivets. Therefore, we want countersinks. Another easy way to go about this, once we know all that, everything that's a 40 hole in this, a number 40, is going to get countersunk. Now, I do have a left and a right because they were match drilled to the left and the right. And so I want to make sure that I countersink it to create a left and a right. As it stands, the part is not handed, meaning from the factory, this could function as either a left or a right. I designated this one a left when I match drilled it to the left-hand side. I want to keep it that way so everything fits right. So my countersinks need to make sure that they go on the outside of the airplane, therefore maintaining this part status as a left-hand part. That was a lot, and I apologize. But I think it's helpful for those of you who are getting ready to do this yourselves. I'm going to go ahead and countersink these up, remove the plastic, get them ready to scour down. Next we've got these. Now, this certainly doesn't fit the bill as far as taking down the most difficult parts first, but we're running low on difficult parts. That's awesome. These are pretty simple.
I think I'm going to call this segment Famous Last Words.
I just need to enlarge this hole to 1 inch, and I think that's it. All right, for this, I've chosen to use this absolutely mammoth step drill.
Now, this step drill was given to me as something to test out. It was a freebie. And there's nothing wrong with this step drill in and of itself. I think my usage needs a little finesse. But primarily, this thing was just grabby. It really, really wanted to cut. And I thought having it in the drill press would allow me to keep enough of an eye on the vertical movement that I could just slowly shave away the aluminum. But regardless, it would still grab, and hold. And as a result, you see me fighting this thing all the way through. It doesn't help that, like, even just getting it set up so I could get the drill press through enough of that step drill to get to the 1-inch mark took a really sketchy setup. So all around, this was just not great. I really should have taken a look. I was under the impression that my fly cutter would only go as small as 1 1/4. Measuring later, I found out it indeed would have done a 1-inch hole.
Yikes. I think I almost would have preferred the fly cutter. That thing's aggressive. But we got the holes, we got them where we want. Setup took a while. I'm just going to file them down real quick, and then I'm going to take the gizmo here and hit the edges, and then we'll deburr some holes. This thing's done. Alright, another one done and in the pile. Now let's see here. I've already got the right hand version of this on the table. I'll grab the left. We'll work on these. Alright, so these longerons, all throughout the forward fuselage, are where the dimple stops. And what I mean by that is that the skin runs flush up to this. Now often we've got bulkheads and auxiliary stiffeners on the other side. However, the countersink goes on this side, and that's it. From there on out, we have flat, flush rivet surfaces mating together. So what I have to do is take a look at the skin that's going up against this and make sure that I match all of the dimples that are on the skin with countersinks on this end. There are a few that are receiving through bolts or screws that will not be countersunk. And of course, I have some gear attachment bolts that will go in here, and we're leaving those as those number 40 pilot holes. Other than that, everything should get various sized countersinks. Once that is completed, it gets the usual deburr, and I'll do a quick check of the plans to make sure that's it. Auxiliary longerons, same deal. This should be quick. Another pair of parts done. Here are some of the final pieces. Floor stiffeners, fuselage stiffeners. And it really is just a lot of more of the same. I'm gonna save you the pain of watching this and me the pain of editing this. And that right there is why we start with the hard pieces. That's all of them. There are a couple small pieces that go between the firewall and the bottom skin. They help attach the cowl. I'm going to leave them out of this batch for now. I'm a little concerned about space in the booth, sort of top of mind after last week's adventure with skins, but I think I might have enough room. I'm going to go ahead and get this place cleaned up, throw out the plastic, start scrubbing these pieces down, hanging them on wire, and putting them in the spray booth. there is nothing extraordinarily interesting about this part. In no particular order, we scrub, and then I'm going to start hanging them directly in the boot. I think that is about all we're gonna get in there, and I think that's still pretty good. 2 batches is not gonna break my heart, and I think with luck, I should be able to make pretty good timing, even having to do 2 batches. It's hard to tell if I got everything as well as I hope I did, as I thought I did. I felt like I was almost putting down too much paint, and then now that some parts are out and in better light, I'm not quite so sure. But we'll let it dry and we'll take a peek.
See that white mark on my head? Yeah, that one. Just so everybody's aware, if you get that, that's a sign that your mask isn't sealing properly. I need to go back and make sure that my mask is fully sealing and that I'm not breathing in paint. Went a little harder on my boots than I intended. It's been a couple hours, it's starting to dry, and everything looks just a little lighter than it did about a couple hours ago. It's kind of a bummer. I don't know if they need another coat or if I'm going to be happy with it, but I'll let them cure all the way and then I'll make my decision. Well, while I'm still knocking around ideas on what to do with those before they've even dried, I have some pretty easy stuff. This is all going to go back together, but this time we're going to rivet it, which means everything has to be dimpled. There's a lot of these holes that were left undimpled so things could easily slide together and we could match drill. But now we need to get it ready to put together for reels. So I'm going to go through and just start dimpling everything that needs to be dimpled, including the skins, the bulkheads, and anything else that hasn't been hit yet. There's a couple things to think through on some of these. For me, by now, just because this thing has been my life for the last year and a half, it's second nature. But just to point it out, you would go ahead and dimple all these. This is on the inside of our longeron. We countersunk our longeron, and like I said before, if you countersink something, the dimple stops there. So this will be flush against the inside leg of the longeron, no dimple. This looks relatively the same. Same style of tab here. However, this is a J stiffener. J stiffener has a dimple, not a countersink. That dimple keeps going all the way through. So, long story short, dimple, no dimple. And there's another thing to think about here. I just realized as I dimpled this one, These haven't even been match drilled yet. This is the top half of the fuselage, and we've been working on the bottom half. So this is where the top aft skin will go on. We can just leave all this untouched for now. I don't think that's going to cause any issues having one dimpled, but realistically, we want to do the same thing we did on everything else, which is fit everything without dimples, match drill, deburr, dimple, etc. The last thing I'm going to do is sneak in and get this front lip, but we have to remember some of those important notes. The first 5 holes here, we countersunk the skin that goes up to here. No dimples. Dimple stops with the countersink. Then we have dimples, except for these underneath, we countersunk this skin, and all of these countersinks are to make room for future fittings that are going oh so close to these rivets. So I don't want to just go ahead and dimple this whole thing. Skip 5, dimple a few, and skip these ones that have been countersunk. Skip that one. And if you're wondering how I know which ones are countersunk, even though I can't see the bottom, I can tell because the hole is just a little bit bigger from that countersink. Now, I've got a line of rivets here where the longeron goes. All need to be dimpled. I'm going to wait until I get it back on sawhorses to do that because, as you can see, I have limited access to that middle compartment there. That's about it. This thing is ready to get clecoed and then riveted back together, which is daunting and exciting and terrifying all at once. But I am very excited to get these parts back on the plane, get this thing together, and tip it right side up. Unfortunately, that's going to wait for another episode. I, as always, want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank you for sending me comments. Let's just start all this over. All right, there is a line of rivets where the longeron goes all the way down each side of this, but I'm going to wait until I get it on some sawhorses because I've got some access issues on that middle bay. Once that's done, this thing goes back together. First clecos and then rivets, and I couldn't be more excited. It's been a little tough seeing it in all these various pieces after having it all together one time. I can't wait to get back to that stage. Of course, it's gonna have to wait until another episode. That's it for this one. I wanna thank you for tuning in. Catch you next time on Ryan Flies.